next Friday, but it starts tonight with a win over Louisville Central. This is a good Louisville Central team. We'll talk about it as we go throughout the rest of this show. Very athletic team, very talented team. This is going to be a fun matchup tonight at Rebel Stadium. 7:30 kickoff for that one. The other game we're keeping an eye on is the Franklin County at Corbin game. And the winner of that game will play the winner of the Boyle County game in the state championship game a week from today. So 2 games we'll keep an eye on, keep track of the scores all night long tonight. And if you're listening to the Big Daddy, Steve Bertram, and Radio Rick tonight, Tim's actually going to be there tonight as well doing the stats for the game. So maybe hear Tim on the microphone as well. But if you're listening to the broadcast tonight on Z105, I'm sure you'll be getting some score updates with Franklin County and Corbin as well. And that's why, because the winner of those 2 games meet next Friday in the state championship in Class 4A. So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about Boyle County, Louisville Central. We also have the Danville Family Dentistry High School Fantasy Football Draft Awards Show. And we do this every year. This is where we crown the quarterback, the running back, the athlete, the wide receiver, the kicker, and the defense of the year. For fantasy points, the players that scored the most points in their respective positions, and we crown the overall fantasy player of the year. We have the fantasy show coming up. We'll talk Boyle County, Louisville Central. We've got Tim in studio. We're stuffed full of turkey and mashed potatoes and stuffing, and we are ready to rock on this high school football Friday night here in Titletown as the Rebels look to make it back to their 4th consecutive state championship. 2019, 20, 21, 22. Yes, this would be 4 in a row for Boyle County if they can win it tonight over Louisville Central. So let's talk about this Louisville Central Yellow Jackets team. That'll be coming up right after this on the Zaxby's High School Football Preview Show at HTR Joe on Twitter. We'll step aside, we'll come back, and we'll dive into this Louisville Central team right here on the Zaxby's High School Football Preview Show on WHIR, WHBN, and HometownLive.net.
Paid for by Bar Justice. Attention. Have you or a loved one been diagnosed with cancer after using Zantac or other heartburn medications for several months? The FDA has warned that Zantac and other medications containing heartburn drug, ranitidine, may be contaminated with cancer-causing agent NDMA. Zantac may be linked to these cancers: bladder, colorectal, esophageal, intestinal, kidney, liver, ovarian, pancreatic, stomach, testicular, and uterine. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with cancer after using Zantac or other heartburn medications for several months, call now. 800-516-9931. Never stop taking medication without first consulting a physician. Call right now for a free consultation. You may be owed significant compensation. Call 800-516-9931. 800-516-9931. That's 800-516-9931. 800-516-9931.
The new Boyle County Performing Arts Center and West T. Hill are proud to present Scrooge the Musical. Friday, December 2nd, Saturday, December 3rd, both at 7:30 p.m. Sunday, December 4th at 3:30, Friday, December 9th, and Saturday, December 10th, both at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are on sale now for $15. Get yours today. Get in the Christmas spirit as you witness the transformation of miserly Ebenezer Scrooge. Tickets can be purchased by visiting the Boyle County Performing Arts site at boyle.kyschools.us/bcpac. boyle.kyschools.us/bcpac.
Here at Zaxby's, we have perfectly paired all of our sauces to go with our hand-breaded chicken fingers. Seriously, it's science. Each flavor profile is in perfect harmony with each other. The crisp, zesty notes of honey mustard, the full, rounded, bold flavor of buffalo garlic glaze, the elegant, spicy smoke of Tug Torch. All the perfect pair to our famous chicken fingers. Test them out for yourself and grab some extra napkins. Select one from our 12 sauce options. There's endless sauce abilities, only at Zaxby's.
It's 6:13 in the evening on a football Friday night here in Boyle County. The Rebels looking to move on to the state championship game next Friday. It's a little Steppenwolf bringing us back. You a Steppenwolf fan, Tim?
This song mainly,
yes.
But it's kind of before me. I'm not as old as you think I am, man.
Well, this and Born to Be Wild are the two big ones.
Yeah.
But I remember my dad would listen to all this oldie stuff when I was younger. So I remember listening to Steppenwolf when I was a kid.
Yeah. I've seen, it's come through the house, so yeah.
Yeah. Hey, it's been a weird week for me because I've been under the weather a little bit earlier this week, and went home Monday from work not feeling well and watched the USA World Cup game. You been watching the World Cup?
No, because I've been working.
You've been working? Okay. off. I watched it Monday when everybody else was working. And then the other game was today, earlier this afternoon. They played England, USA did, and it was 0-0. I watched an entire soccer game, but they didn't score any goals at all. So I'm ready to see some points tonight, is what I'm saying, and I think we're going to see some tonight at Rebel Field. This is the 7th time since 2000 that Louisville Central and Boyle County have played each other. 7th time since 2000. All 7 times have been in the playoffs. They have never played each other in the regular season. They've always been in the playoffs. Boyle County won the first 3 matchups. They won in 2001, they won in 2004, and they won in 2005. Then a decade passed before they played again in 2015 when Central beat Boyle in back-to-back years, 2015 and 2016. Those were Chuck Smith's first 2 years back, I think, at Boyle County. Were 15 and 16. Then they would play again in 2019. Boyle beat Central 31-14 that year, and Louisville Central now coming back to Boyle County to play for the 7th time tonight. Louisville Central led by head coach Marvin Dantzler, who took over Central back in 2017. Let's talk about Coach Dantzler. He's a phenomenal head coach. He is originally from Louisiana, from Monroe, Louisiana, where he coached in Louisiana. Was able to coach some pretty good players on the high school level during his high school coaching days in Louisiana, including, if you're familiar with the NFL, Baltimore Ravens running back Justice Hill played for him in high school, as did former Cleveland Browns player Dominique Alexander. So he coached, actually, there was 3 total NFL players that Coach Dantzler coached when he was in Louisiana. So he certainly has the pedigree. He's coached some good players. Came to Louisville Central from Monroe, Louisiana. This is his 10th year overall as a head coach when you count all of his years in Louisiana as well. 54-21 overall record at Louisville Central, including making the state semifinals the first 3 years in the job in 2017, 2018, and 2019 at Central. He won the 2018 state title game over the Corbin Redhounds, who were coached by Justin Haddix at that point. So now you see the whole thing come full circle. That 2018 state title was the 6th title in Louisville Central football history. Overall record, though, is coaching from Louisiana to Louisville Central. He's 90-41 overall as a head coach, so a phenomenal head coaching record. However, 0-1 in his career versus Boyle County, again when Louisville Central came here in 2019 and lost to the Rebels at Rebel Stadium, the only other time he has coached personally against Boyle County. This has been a really interesting team for Louisville Central this year. They have really caught fire as of late, and has a lot to do with the schedule they've played. They've won 7 games in a row. They haven't lost since September the 23rd, and they have played a brutal schedule. When you look at the teams they played, a 9-4 record, those 4 losses have come to DuPont Manual. They lost by 1 to Bullitt East, who we know is playing tonight in the 6A semifinals against Bryan Station. They lost by 1 to Manual, lost by 1 to Bullitt East, then lost to St. X, who we know is always a 6A power. They lost in the second round to Mel, but you can count St. X as a traditional 6A power. And they lost to Belfry, who beat them by a field goal, 24-21, and then got shut out by Brandon Smith's South Warren team. So the 4 games they lost this year, to Manual, to Bullitt East, to St. X, and to Belfry, those 4 games they've lost have been to some traditional, when you talk about blue blood powers in the state of Kentucky, their 4 losses have come to some pretty good teams, haven't they?
Yeah, that's the big thing I noticed looking at their schedule was, I'm like, okay, this team doesn't have a real impressive schedule, but you had to dig into it.
Yes.
They played a lot of the powers up around Louisville, which we've talked about. A good team's going to do that. They're going to look for stronger competition, which is what Central has done. They've grown through this. And so, don't think their record is anything like, we're going to sweep right by this team tonight. They're legit.
And starting off slow is something that's happened before with Louisville Central, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on. I have that in my notes. So don't let the record fool you. Mm-hmm. They're 9-4. You see that 4 losses, and they're a good team. Their 4 losses have come to teams with a combined 31-16 record. They've also beaten some good teams this year as well. They beat 2 6A schools, but their most impressive win by far this season was the regular season finale when they shut out Franklin County 24-0. That's a Franklin County team that is tonight, we mentioned, playing Corbin for a chance to move on to the 4A state championship game next week. So they've lost to some good teams. They have beaten some good teams. This is a good team. And as Coach Haddix would say, you expect to play good teams this late in the playoffs. I mean, there's a reason why they're still playing, because they're a really good team. Let's talk about their offense. And I'm excited to talk about this Louisville Central offense because I was looking at the numbers over the last couple of days, and man, are they talented offensively. This is a team that put up 86 points in its last 2 games played. And at one point this season, had a 2-game stretch where they put up 116 points in a 2-game stretch. They are a very run-heavy offense, and we kind of expect the Louisville Central team to be that way. They're almost always run-heavy. Same thing this year. They've run exactly 500 plays this season. 380 of those 500 have been rushing plays. So that's a 76-24 run-pass discrepancy. And the yardage lines up perfectly with that as well. They get 78% of their yards on the ground. So 76% of their plays are runs, 78% of their total offense are rushes. They are a run-heavy team. And I do not blame them one bit for being a run-heavy team, because they're going to have potentially tonight the best player on the football field, and a kid named Cortez Stone. And, I know Boyle County has got Montaven Quisenberry, and Montaven's a great player. Montaven may be the best player in the field. Tommy Ziesmer may be the best player in the field. But I'm saying, when you talk about the best players in the field tonight, Cortez Stone, who I believe wears number 8, is going to be one of the guys to circle that, he's going to be one of the best players in the football field. He mirrors Montaven Quisenberry. There's a lot of similarities between the two players, in Montaven Quisenberry and Cortez Stone. And when I look, we'll tell you about why in a second, but when I look down the players that Boyle County has played this year, and the teams that Boyle County has played, you can make an argument that Cortez Stone is going to be the best individual player that Boyle County has played up to this point this year, right? And you look at the other teams. Frederick Douglass obviously had great talent, but there's so much talent, it's hard to pinpoint just one, right? Ty Bryant's very good, Devon Hart's very good, they have guys in the defense that are very good, so it's hard to pinpoint who's the best player on Frederick Douglass. It's not hard to pinpoint who the best player on Louisville Central is. It's Cortez Stone. And individually speaking, the way he can stand out on offense for Louisville Central is why I think he may be the best individual player that Boyle County plays this year. Let's talk about him quickly for a minute, because, again, there are similarities between him and Quisenberry. When you're wondering, if you're listening and you're wondering what kind of player is Cortez Stone, Stone's a little bit bigger. He runs a little bit harder. He's 5'10", 165. Quisenberry's 5'8", 155. So there's 2 inches of height difference and 10 pounds of difference in Cortez Stone's favor. I've watched him run on film. Again, he runs a little bit bigger than Montaven does, but it's a fairly close body type. That's one similarity. Number 2, they're both sophomores. Okay, so they're both young guys that are phenomenal. Number 3, they both have multiple Division I offers. We know Montaven just picked one up from Louisville, in UK, I think, earlier this season. Cortez has got one from Purdue, EKU, WKU. He just visited Louisville, I think it was last week. So, when you look at this guy in Cortez Stone, think Montaven Quisenberry. He is their Montaven Quisenberry. That's what he does in the football field. An electric player with a ball in his hands. This is what I'm talking about. Last week versus Logan County, and again, they just drilled Logan County. 22 rushes, 363 yards, and 5 touchdowns in 3 quarters. He didn't even play the 4th quarter, Tim, and he had 363 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. The week before that, 229 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. He's ran for nearly 600 yards the last 2 weeks alone. He is an absolute threat with the ball in his hands. They're going to want to ride Cortez Stone the entire game, getting him as many touches as they can, because as he goes, so goes the Louisville Central offense.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's in your notes or not, but it's how many yards he has total on the season.
Yeah.
We haven't come across another player that's got that. I mean, you got it in there, Joe?
He leads the entire state in rushing yards per game. He averages 177 a game. I think he's second in the state in rushing yards total, or it's vice versa. He's first in total rushing yard and second in average per game. But and there's a reason why he's leading the state in rushing. Louisville Central gives him the ball as much as they can, and they should, because he's that good of a player. 177 a game. There it is, second in rushing yards total. But here's the thing about what they do on offense. While he's the best player on their team, without a doubt, there's got to be other complementary pieces for them to be able to win, and that's what happens when they lose. So Cortez Stone's going to get his yardage regardless. I mean, you look wins and losses. There's one game, I think it was the South Warren game, where he ran for 34 yards total. Besides that, we're talking 160, 170, 180, even in losses.
Yeah.
So even when they lose, he's doing his thing. He's getting his yards. The question is, can they get anything out of the passing game? Because that's been the issue when they lose. You know, we mentioned earlier that Louisville Central is 9-4. And their 4 losses, Cortez Stone's average game, 20 carries, 120 yards. So a great average, right? I mean, you're looking at 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. That's 6 yards a carry. Yeah. I mean, that's not shabby, right? You're getting the ball 6 yards a carry, Cortez Stone, about a touchdown a game as well. Their passing game, however, is what's really struggled in games they lose. Their quarterback's a kid named Xavier Brown. And remember, they don't want to throw it a lot because they want to give it to Cortez Stone. But they're at their best when Cortez Stone's getting yards and Brown's able to fling it around a little bit too. In their 9 wins this year, Xavier Brown's 39 for 65 combined. That's total. So he's only getting about 7 attempts per game in wins. But that's fine. They don't need him to throw the ball a lot. They need him to throw him a little bit, but not a whole lot. 7 attempts per game, but a 60% completion percentage, 589 yards, 7 touchdowns, 2 picks in 9 games. In their other 4 losses, 20 for 52. That's a 38% completion percentage. He's averaging 13 attempts per game in losses, so he's throwing more because he feels like they have to because they're behind and he can't do it. 192 yards total in 4 games. 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions. So the attempts per game go up nearly double. The completion percentage drops nearly 25%. So, you know, the question is, Tim, can they get anything out of the passing game? A passing attack that has not been very dependable, even in games they win. But can they do enough tonight against Boyle County? We believe Cortez Stone's going to be able to get his yardage. Numbers indicate even in losses he gets his yardage. But can they get enough out of the passing game, being a team that doesn't pass the ball all that much against a Rebel defense that's really good?
Yeah, no, that's going to be the thing. You've got Cortez, he's running. So you're pretty much going to stack the box. You're going to stack and dare Central to throw the ball. Say, go ahead and throw the ball if you can. Because we're going to stop your best player. We're going to make the weakest part of the offense beat us.
Yeah.
And that really, in my opinion, is works in Boyle's favor.
Yeah, that's the Louisville Central offense. Again, they're going to be run heavy. 76% run, 78% of their offense comes from the run in terms of offensive total yardage. Stack the box. We certainly expect that. Cortez Stone's the guy to watch. I was talking with an assistant coach in Class 4A who coached against Louisville Central this year. I talked to him earlier today, and I said, this Cortez Stone kid looks like he's the real deal. And he said something along the lines of, dude, he is. Yeah. He said, you know, we held him to whatever it was, 64 rushing yards for most of the game, and then we had him in the backfield for 2 or 3 other plays, and then suddenly we didn't have him, and he went for like 50 yards a run. Right? So he's a guy like Quisenberry. You feel like you got him down, and then you don't, and suddenly you blink, and he's 20 or 30 yards upfield. So it's important for Boyle County to be able to contain Cortez Stone, but even if you don't, you still got a good chance to win if you can shut the passing game down. That's going to be the key to Louisville Central's offense. At HTR Joe on Twitter, we are talking Boyle County and Louisville Central. It's a kickoff in about an hour from now, 7:30 kickoff tonight. And we'll have that game on our sister station, Z105 WRNZ-FM, with the Big Daddy, Steve Bertram, on the play-by-play, Radio Rick on the color commentary, and Tim on the stats. We'll step aside. We'll come back. We'll have the High School Fantasy Football Draft Award show. We'll also talk about this Boyle County versus Louisville Central, the Yellow Jacket defense. I'll talk about some things that make this Yellow Jacket team dangerous tonight, and I'll tell you some things that make this Rebel team dangerous tonight as well. At HTR Joe on Twitter, it is a semi-state Friday night on the High School Football Preview Show, live from the Hometown Radio Network on 103.9 FM WHIR, 99.5 FM WHBN, and hometownlive.net.
Paid for by Bar Justice. Attention. Have you or a loved one been diagnosed with cancer after using Zantac or other heartburn medications for several months? The FDA has warned that Zantac and other medications containing heartburn drug, ranitidine, may be contaminated with cancer-causing agent NDMA. Zantac may be linked to these cancers: bladder, colorectal, esophageal, intestinal, kidney, liver, ovarian, pancreatic, stomach, testicular, and uterine. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with cancer after using Zantac or other heartburn medications for several months, call now. 800-516-9931. Never stop taking medication without first consulting a physician. Call right now for a free consultation. You may be owed significant compensation. Call 800-516-9931. 800-516-9931. That's 800-516-9931. 800-516-9931.
Danville Family Dentistry, we're all about you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa Neal at Danville Family Dentistry. We can all agree life is busy and our days are full. Don't let getting a dental appointment be part of the stress. Call us at 236-2488 and let us help keep your smile beautiful and healthy. We are open 5 days a week to accommodate your schedule. At Danville Family Dentistry, we are all about you. We are located at 132 North 2nd Street. Again, that's Danville Family Dentistry, 236-2488.
Hey folks, this is Duke Owens, General Manager here at Cartown Kia in Nicholasville. You know, folks are complaining daily about supply chains and inventory. We don't have that problem. We have new Kias arriving daily. We have a great selection of Kias from Tellurides, Sorrentos, Sportages, Celtos, Souls, K5s, and Fortes. And remember, we have over 20 lenders that want to approve you. Come and see us here at Cartown Kia or look us up online at cartownkiausa.com.
While supplies last with approved credit. See dealer for details and availability.
While you're enjoying your Candleberry candle that you found at Papa's Quick Stop and the weather is cold, what tastes better than a hot bowl of chili or soup, beans, and cornbread made like Mama does? Papa's Quick Stop has all your needs and daily lunch specials and fried chicken with the bone, Hunt's Brother Pizza, ribs, and do I need to go on with more delicious, affordable food and snacks? And most of all, great breakfast sandwiches. Hey, Papa, can you stop at the Quick Stop in Danville across from the fairgrounds, formerly known as Hill of Beans, now offering catered group meals to go for the holidays.
High school football preview show at HTRJO on Twitter for your comments, your concerns, your questions. I'm watching these two mascots got into a fight in the middle of a college football game today. Arizona State, the mascots were throwing punches.
Yeah, they were swinging.
They were. Yeah, did you see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like one got his headpiece kind of knocked around.
Yeah, caught me off guard.
Or something. Yeah.
Just popped up here on Twitter at HTR Joe on Twitter for the Zaxby's High School Football Preview Show, and we'd love to have you on. Tim did mention in the last commercial break there is one more team that we can kind of keep an eye on. It's Bullitt East with Keegan Kendrick as the head coach there at Bullitt East. Keegan, of course, a former Boyle County Rebel, and he's a win away from taking his Bullitt East Chargers to the state championship game in his first year as the head coach. Remember, he was the assistant under, I think, the offensive coordinator under Ethan Ashley last year. Ethan Ashley went to, I think he's at Frankfurt now or something, and that left the opening in Bullitt East, and Keegan Kendrick slid in, and now he's a game away from taking in the state championship. I can't imagine what that feels like for a guy who, I don't know how old Keegan is. I'm going to say like 25, 24, 25. He graduated in 2012, so that'd make him maybe 28, 27.
Let's go with that.
Just throwing numbers out here now at this point.
We've already shown Mathis on our strength.
His first year as the head coach on the high school level, he's upper 20s, mid 20s, and he's came away from the state championship game.
6A too.
6A at the same time.
Yeah.
You talk about making a name for yourself. Goodness gracious. So we hope Bullitt East can do their thing tonight against Bryan Station and get themselves a chance at a state championship. We talked about the Louisville Central offense very quickly in the first half of this show, Tim. Let's talk about this defense. And, as much as Cortez Stone does and as good as he is on offense, and their offense has certainly been good. This 7-game win streak they're on, their defense has really been the reason why they've won 7 consecutive games. Through their first 6 games of the year, when they started off 2-4, they gave up 145 points. That's 24 points per game, which isn't great. It's not terrible, but it's not great. 145 points they gave up through the first 6 games of the year. Their next 7 games combined, leading up to tonight, they've given up 26 points total. That's less than 4 points per game they're giving up over the last 7 games. Now, one of those is a forfeit, a 1-0 forfeit win over Marion County in the first round of the playoffs. But still, they won it. It counts. That's what the score says, 1-0. So they've given up 26 points over the last 7 games they played. Their last 4 regular season games, they beat their opponents by a combined score of 174-0. Haven't given up any points their final 4 regular season games. That does include, again, that Franklin County game. So this is not teams. Look, they play teams that they're supposed to beat because they're in the district with them. Boyle County did too. Right? I mean, like, you could look at that. Boyle County played Bourbon County. Boyle County played Anderson County. Teams like that. Louisville Central has to play teams like that, too. But when they were on the field over the last 7 games, they have taken care of business. No doubt about it, particularly on the defensive side of things. In their 7-game heater they're on, the most yardage they gave up in a single game was last week to Logan County. They gave up 247 total yards that game. And they won that game in running clock fashion. So again, the question is how many of those yards actually came in crucial game situation when it really mattered. They could have given up 100 yards in that game in the 4th quarter alone when it was already a running clock, when the third-team defense was on the field. So the defense is playing phenomenally right now for this Louisville Central team. They're also extremely athletic on defense, just like they are on offense. This is a team that's forced 21 turnovers this year. That is not an astronomical amount. Boyle County's forced 30 of them, right? So I'm not saying that that's an astronomical amount of turnovers. It's good, but Boyle County's forced 9 more than Louisville Central has. The difference is that out of those 21 turnovers that Central has forced, nearly a quarter of them have gone back for touchdowns. Out of Boyle's 30 forced turnovers, you know how many defensive touchdowns they have this year? Boyle County, 30 forced turnovers?
Out of 30, I'm going to say, I'm at least go 12, 15.
You think half of their forced turnovers have been taken back for touchdowns?
I'm being optimistic here now.
No, less. 1.
Yeah. And
they have 1 defensive touchdown. Now, that's not to slight Boyle County. I think it's more important that Louisville Central scores on defense than it is for Boyle County, right? Because I think Boyle County's offense is more consistent, so like you wouldn't look at Boyle County and say, "Oh man, they didn't take that pick 6 back. How are we going to score?" No, they're going to come out on offense and score anyway, right? So I think it's more important for Louisville Central to be able to score on defense, and I'm bringing that up because they have scored on defense. They've scored 25% of all their turnovers have been taken back for touchdowns, and that's big for Louisville Central, especially when you're going against a team tonight in Boyle County where it may be tough to score offensively as it is. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest things that we're circling in the game today. Offensively, we talked about the quarterback play. We know Cortez Stone's going to get his offensive yardage. What can the quarterback do? On defense, what does Louisville Central do defensively tonight? Can they force any turnovers against Boyle County? Because I think if Central is going to have any chance to beat Boyle County, speaking just looking at from their perspective, they're going to have to steal possessions. And it's tough to do because Boyle County is so good. They're rock solid. They're ABC football. I mean, they do what they're supposed to do, and it's tough to steal possessions. And here's why I think that's important, why it's tough to do. In their 4 losses this year, it's almost eerily similar how teams have done against Central in the losses. Manual, 291 total yards in that game. St. X, 286 total yards in that game. Belfry, 292 total yards in that game. South Warren, 278 total yards in that game. So you're looking at when teams beat Louisville Central, 280 to 300 total yards of offense is really all it takes. And I know it doesn't always mean this, but you think the more offensive yards you get, the more points you score because you're moving the ball up and down the field. Not every drive ends in touchdowns, I get that, but that's usually the way it works. You don't usually see a team rack up 400 yards of offense and have 7 points, right? Yeah. The more offense you get, the more points you're going to score. Boyle County averages 366 yards a game, right? So just the way the total yardage adds up, Louisville Central is going to have to do something to be able to try to stop Boyle County to get themselves the extra possessions they need. And that's not an easy thing to do because the Rebels are just talented, good all the way around from player number 1 to player number 11 in the football field. They're like a machine. Everything is in motion. Everything is in tandem. They do everything the right way, and it's tough to be able to see Boyle County make that many mistakes to where it's going to favor Louisville Central to be able to win tonight.
Yeah, they do what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it. They don't get frantic, feel like they're playing from behind. They play disciplined football, and which is, we've seen from Coach Haddox over the past few years. That's the way they are. They're disciplined. They don't panic, and that makes it hard because you want them, Central will want them to panic so they'll make a mistake, throw the ball away or try to do something. So everything's in Boyle's side on this. So, and of course, I'm not sure looking at stats how Central is with special teams, but that would be another one I think they have to try to get something back. So I could see, having their best player back there for punt returns. So maybe, the big thing is trying to wear him out to make him non-effective. So.
And again, Boyle County is so good. And last week against Lexington Catholic, we saw the Rebels throw the interception the first drive of the football game. And then Catholic comes back down and throws their own interception in the end zone. Right? And you can't do that as a team that's trying to beat Boyle. You can't do that against Boyle County. You got to force the mistakes, but you can't make the mistakes back. And when Boyle County made a mistake last week, they got it back 3 plays later. They had the ball back in their hands. They were driving down the football field to score. So, it takes such a Herculean effort to be able to beat the Rebels because they're so good. Mm-hmm. Now, there are some things I think that makes Louisville Central dangerous that will kind of spark them. And then I'm going to end with what I think makes Boyle County dangerous. But since we're talking mostly about Central because that's who Boyle County's playing, let's talk about them. It seems to me like they kind of relish in the underdog role. So I was looking online on social media. I was looking through some things, and I came up on Cortez Stone's Twitter page. I think it was his. And he said something along the lines of, hey, remember when we were 2-4 and everybody doubted us? And I can understand why people would doubt a team that's 2-4. And now they're 9-4. They've won 7 in a row, and they're playing Boyle County in the state semifinals. Right? So I feel like, in a game where they're going to be the underdog, they've already felt like the underdog all year long. We were 2-4. Nobody liked us. Nobody believed in us. And now we're here, and we're playing a team that nobody believes we can win. We're the underdog, and they kind of relish in all that. So that's one thing I think that kind of sparks, can get the wheels turning for Louisville Central. This is also, number 2, not the first time that Louisville Central has come into the playoffs with a not-so-phenomenal record. Now, remember, we talked about this to begin the show. They're 9-4, and it's easy to get caught up on record. But if you go back to 2010, I know that's a long time ago. It's 12 years ago. But if you go back to 2010, they started off the season 1-5. They ended the regular season 4-6. They then went on to win their next 5 games and won the state championship with a 9-6 record and dominated most of the teams they played in the playoffs. So that's the one thing that always clicks in my head when I look at Louisville Central because of that 2010 team and some of the other teams as well. But it's hard to wrap your head around a team that can come in with such a poor record. 9-4 is not poor, but particularly in 2010 when they were 4-6, and see them win 5 games in a row. But they've done it before. So they believe in themselves. They relish the underdog status. They've done this before in the past. They've got a coach who's won a state championship. They've got great athletes. To them, this is just another football game, right? Like, they relish in all this.
Yeah, just another Friday night.
Yes. But then you flip the script, and then you look at Boyle County, and you say, well, what is it that makes Boyle County so dangerous? And with all due respect to Louisville Central, as Mark Jackson would say on NBA on ESPN, with all due respect to Louisville Central, as much as Louisville Central loves and relishes being the underdog, don't you think, Tim, that Boyle County loves and relishes being the juggernaut just as much as, if not more, than Louisville Central loves and relishes being the underdog?
Oh, yeah, I do. I think they
had a state championship or state semifinal practice yesterday. They were selling sweatshirts, hot chocolate, all that, which is what you're supposed to do. But what I mean by that is when we start the season off in the middle of August, I don't know when the kickoff was, August the 17th or 18th or something this year. But when we start the season off, I go ahead and I plan that I'm doing a show through the first weekend of December.
Yeah.
And it's because of Boyle County, right? It's the expectation that, hey, we can't plan anything Black Friday. Well, what do you mean it's the day after Thanksgiving because Boyle County's going to be playing the state semifinal game that day, right? Yeah. It's the expectation that they're going to be there even before the season begins. And that expectation is there every single year for Boyle County. And that's what I'm talking about. They love it, and we love it. We expect to be there. We know. I mean, we were talking before the season began. Boyle County, Black Friday, state semifinals, at Rebel Stadium. We're going to be doing the show, wherever we're doing it, if it's in the studio, if it's there, wherever it is. We already had it planned. We're going to be doing a show. Already have it planned. Hopefully we got a state championship post-game show after next Friday. I mean, we just have it planned that way. It's in our blood because we expect Boyle County to be here.
Yeah, I mean, it's what it is. It's where it is. It's one of those things that, okay, if you don't like it, stop it.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much. And that's kind of how I see them doing. It's like, hey, if you don't like us acting this way, then stop us.
And they can't. Nobody can.
No. And I've already said it 2 or 3 times. I still don't think they're going to do it tonight either.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just they've got swag, I guess. I was going to say a cockiness, but no, it's a confidence. It's a swag. This is what we do.
Yes. I mean, this is business, right? Friday nights, it's fun, but it's a business. You slap the Boyle County jersey on, you put the helmet with the cursive B on it, and you go to work. Yeah. You take care of business for 48 minutes, and you get ready for next week in the state championship game. I mean, it's what you do every year. It's just part of the Boyle County culture.
Well, and the big thing, too, is the coaches don't let them get ahead of themselves.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, let's take care of this week. We'll take care of next week. They do a great job about that, too.
Yeah. So that's number one. But number two is something maybe that's even more interesting and important to think about. Is I started off the show talking about Cortez Stone, phenomenal player, great player. And I said he may be the best player in the football field. And he might be. He probably isn't, but he might be. So let's just say, for a comparison, for this illustration, that he is. Let's just say, without a shadow of a doubt, for this illustration, Cortez Stone is the best player on the football field tonight. Who's the second best? Tommy Ziesmer? Maybe? Montaven Quisenberry?
Yeah, Quisenberry is kind of be who I'd go with. The best, and that will make a bigger difference.
Yes. Okay, who's the third best?
Tommy.
And who's the fourth best?
Let's go Sage.
Who's the fifth best?
Yeah.
You get where I'm going?
Yeah.
So they may have the best player on the football field. They probably don't. But he's really good. He's one of those guys who's good enough that you can at least talk about him maybe being the best. But even if he is, Boyle's going to have the second best, third best, fourth best, fifth best, sixth best, seventh best, eighth best. They're going to have the rest of them, right? So they can have a really good player in Cortez Stone, and they do. But as a team, it takes 11 guys to win, 11 guys as a whole. And as a team, I think Boyle County is a better team, which is why I think it makes Boyle County more dangerous in this situation. They're at home. This is business. They're expected to be here. They love being here. The fans love they're here. I love they're talking about the radio. I love they're here. I hope they're here next Friday so we can be doing this again, but it's a business for them. They love it, and they relish in it, and that's what makes them so dangerous. Now, not to get ahead of myself, I mentioned earlier in the show that I talked with a coach in Class 4A. Mm-hmm. And I sent him one question today earlier to start off the conversation. I said, does Louisville Central have a chance against Boyle County? And he sent me one word back. He said yes. And this is a guy who's coached against Louisville Central this year. He's coached against Boyle County in the past, so he knows both of them. So someone who knows both teams inside and out. He didn't say they'd win, but he said he thinks they have a chance to at least make it a game. So someone who knows better than we do, Tim, says yes. I just think, overall speaking, it's the Rebels' year again. They're at home again. They've got 11 guys, cohesive unit on the field, offensively, defensively, special teams. They're the better team. I just think they're going back to Kroger Field next Friday. I think they are, and I think they're going to be playing Corbin, and what a game that'll be, Corbin versus Boyle County, but we got to let the puzzle pieces kind of fit before that happens. But I think Boyle County wins tonight. I think they're the better team, and I think we're having a state championship pregame show next Friday around this time.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Just from watching everything, I don't like it. It's great when a team goes undefeated, but it's also really good when a team gets beat because it refocuses them. And I feel like, well, ever since the Lex Cath game early in the year, it refocused. It's like, okay, we got to work on this. We got to do this. It put a little bit of charge into them. So I'm like you. I see everything, us doing this again next week. So.
Hope so. At HTR Joe on Twitter. Tim's got to run to the stadium because he's got to do stats. And while Tim does that, we have the High School Fantasy Football Draft Awards show for you right here on the Hometown Radio Network on the Zaxby's High School Football Preview Show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2022 Danville Family Dentistry High School Fantasy Football Draft Awards show. Oh, this theme music just hits the spot, doesn't it? It took me all of like 5 seconds to find this. Literally went to YouTube and typed in award show music, and this is what I got. This fantasy draft, the last 3 or 4 weeks of it it's been kind of a train wreck. Mr. Packett's had to work like every week. Matt's been gone 1 week. Radio Rick was gone, I think, 1 week. Derek is not here this week. Today is the day after Thanksgiving. So I am the only one in studio here. And so we're going to make this recap as kind of quick and concise as possible. But I do like doing this. We have our own record book for the Fantasy League, and so I like kind of spelling out who did what well, who was the leading scorer for each position, and that's the way this works. This is solely based on the fantasy points that were earned during the high school fantasy football season. It began week number 3 of the season, because that's when the games, after the bowl games are over, the games always start Fridays at 7:30. And it went through the first week of the high school football playoffs. There were 5 teams. Each team played a total of 8 games, with each team also having 2 byes. Each player that was eligible to be drafted could be drafted a total of 9 times. Not 10, though there was 10 weeks total, but each team had a bye, right? So you didn't draft a player when they were on bye. So there were 9 different weeks that each player could be picked. So let's go through each one of these positions, and you take the total number I give you. You divide that number by 9. We'll do the math together. That gives you the points per game average that each player averaged for each position. Let's start off at quarterback. Again, I'm not going to draw this out. If there are some other people to talk to in studio about this, if Matt or Derek or Mr. Packett or Rick were here, it'd be longer. But let's just kind of get to the chase. Quarterback was one of those positions where all season long, Ethan Willoughby dominated the quarterback position, the Casey County quarterback. And then with about 4 or 5 weeks left in the season, Danville moved Maury Brown from running back to quarterback. And Maury was just having some remarkable weeks at quarterback. Now the question is, did Maury have enough weeks at quarterback with the points he scored to be able to overtake Ethan Willoughby? Let's look at the numbers. Maury Brown started at quarterback 4 weeks this year. He started at running back 5 weeks this year. When you add up his quarterback numbers and his running back numbers, Maury Brown scored 287.9 total points in fantasy football this year. As a quarterback and a running back total, he scored 287.9. You divide that number by 9 because Maury was picked a total of 9 times, and he averaged about 32, right at 32 points per game, which is a phenomenal number for Maury Brown. But the question we asked, were his quarterback numbers enough to surpass Ethan Willoughby? And the answer simply is no, because Ethan Willoughby, Mr. Packett dubbed him the Iron Horse. The Iron Horse, Ethan Willoughby, he just did it every single week. From week number 1 of the fantasy draft through week number 10 of the fantasy draft, minus his 1 bye week, Ethan Willoughby did his thing. And Ethan Willoughby scored in 9 weeks this year 373.3 points. He averaged 41.4 points per game. And Ethan Willoughby, the Casey County quarterback, is your Danville Family Dentistry High School Fantasy Football Draft Quarterback of the Year. Congratulations to Ethan Willoughby. Circle that Ethan Willoughby number, 373.3 points he scored, because we're coming back to that. At running back, it really came down to 6 different players, and when you really narrow it down, it came down to really about 4. Maury Brown's one of those because, again, even though Maury only played 5 games at running back, his numbers were still phenomenal in those 5 games. Maury Brown was one of those. Denham Griffith, who I thought kind of was a sleeper pick. I mentioned it all year long. Denham Griffith, it seemed like every time Denham was on the football field, it was triple-digit rushing yards and 1 touchdown. And that's good for like 20 points. You know, that's 15, 20 points right there every single week. Denham Griffith was one of those running backs. Garrett County running back Malachi Simmons, who had a really good year for the Golden Lions, was one of those running backs as well. And Avery Bodner. Now, Avery struggled with injury there towards the tail end of the season. He then moved to quarterback, so we had to give him some quarterback points too. So that kind of throws Avery out of the mix. So it leaves 3. Maury Brown, Malachi Simmons, and Denham Griffith. Out of those 3, Denham Griffith scored 119 points at a running back position this year. That's good for third. Maury Brown with 131 points at running back this year is good for second. And Malachi Simmons for Garrett County, who had weeks where he put up 22.1, 26.9, 25.8, 32.9, 27.5. I think Malachi was highly underrated this year in the high school fantasy football draft. Had a phenomenal year, and Malachi Simmons had 187.6 points scored this year. That's a 20.8 point per game average. Malachi Simmons, give it up for Malachi, is your Danville Family Dentistry High School Fantasy Football Draft running back of the year. Wide receiver of the year, it's easy, but it came down to two. It came down to Casey County wide receiver Gunnar Floyd, who had a heck of a year, but let's be honest. Nobody could hold a candle to number 9 at Boyle County, Montaven Quisenberry. And Montaven started off the year, the first week of the fantasy draft season, with 29.8. He ended it with 28.1 the final week of the year. And when you look at Montaven's stats, anywhere from about 25 to 30 is about where he was every single week. Montaven Quisenberry this season scored 249.1 fantasy points, a 27.7 point per game average. It's an easy choice for wide receiver of the year. Montaven Quisenberry is your Danville Family Dentistry High School Fantasy Football Draft wide receiver of the year. So you got Ethan Willoughby at quarterback, Malachi Simmons at running back, Montaven Quisenberry at wide receiver. Montaven actually won the overall player of the year last year when he was at Garrett County at quarterback. Montaven now has won at two different positions, quarterback and wide receiver. Kicker points were pretty close as well. It came down to 4 different kickers. Cole Andrews of Boyle County, Jace Kokenauer of Mercer County, Caleb Wiltshire of Danville, Zach Daly of Garrett County were the top 4 kickers in the fantasy league this year. In terms of the least number of points of those 4 to the most, Caleb Wiltshire scored 24 points. Zach Daly scored 29 points. Jace Kokenauer scored 34 points. And another Boyle County Rebel is your position player of the year. This one at kicker, Cole Andrews, who scored 43 points at kicker. He averaged 4.8 points per game this year from his kicker spot. Cole Andrews is your kicker of the year. And the defense and special teams of the year, it was easy. No team even came close to what Boyle County did defensively and special teams. And, we talked about Montaven just a couple of minutes ago. Montaven, part of the reason why Boyle County's defense and special teams numbers are so high as well, because of what he did special teams-wise. Boyle County put up 74 points this season and is your defense of the year. To give you kind of an understanding of how far ahead they were from everybody else, the second leading scorer, Mercer County, whose defense and special teams scored 37 this year. So Boyle County outscored him by nearly 40 points. And then the Athlete of the Year, the Danville Family Dentistry High School Fantasy Football Draft Athlete of the Year. It's simple. It's easy. A guy who he played quarterback the entire year. We may be talking about him being the quarterback of the year. It's got to be Maury Brown. They put him at quarterback, and he had the ball in his hands every single play. And when they moved him to quarterback, the final 4 scores of the year for Maury Brown at quarterback, 37.8, 33.6, 62.8, which was an all-time record, and 42.7. Maury Brown, your Athlete of the Year, and very well deserved for a phenomenal player in Maury Brown. A couple of tidbits to let you know about before we officially end this high school fantasy football draft season. I said let's revisit Ethan Willoughby's numbers of 373.3 points. That number is an all-time record. Ethan Willoughby's 373.3 is the most points ever scored by a player in a single season. You got to go all the way back to 2016 for the last time someone scored that many points in a single game, or in a single season, I should say. The player who did that, another Casey County quarterback by the name of Brees Hayes, who's now an assistant coach on Danville's football coaching staff. So we have 2 Casey County quarterbacks on top of the all-time points scored in a single season list. Ethan Willoughby is number 1 all-time, and Ethan Willoughby, because of that, is your overall high school fantasy football player of the year and he joins a very elusive list of only 6 other players. Here's the list of all the others we've crowned as the high school fantasy football draft player of the year. Zach Thornton won the first one in 2017. Darius Napier from Lincoln County, 2018. Reese Smith from Boyle County won it in 2019. Clayton Davis from Lincoln County won it in 2020, the COVID-shortened season. Montaven Quisenberry won it last year for Garrett County, and Ethan Willoughby becomes the first ever Casey County player to win the Danville Family Dentistry High School Fantasy Football Draft Overall Player of the Year. There you go. There you have it. Way to go to Ethan Willoughby. And again, way to go to Team Center Communications, 7-1 this year, and a winner of this year's high school fantasy football draft. We're talking more Boyle County versus Louisville Central coming up right after this. It's a fun year in the fantasy draft, but the last 5 weeks were atrocious. There you go. Hey, I mentioned more Boyle County Louisville Central talk. Yep, we got that coming up with the Big Daddy with Radio Rick on our sister station, Z105, WHIR and ZFM. So flip it over there to hear live play-by-play coverage and see if Boyle County can make it back to the state championship game. And if so, we'll talk to you again next Friday right here on the Hometown Radio Network.
This is the talk of the town, AM 1230, and now on FM 103.9, WHIR Danville, powered by